social media. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Women's Fittest. I have Sarah Ford Bishop here with me today, and we are myth busting once again. I feel like we should have shirts like Mythbuster.
Yeah, like fitness, fitness busters or something. Yeah.
Fitness busters. You would get so many questions. What is that?
You'll find out.
Here's the link. We were just talking about social media and also making plans for the next episode. But this one, we're going to talk about some nutritional stuff. There's just, well, we were talking about how it is frustrating on social media. You get a lot of people posting things, I think, is just their opinions about stuff. And so we want to kind of debunk some of these things, help you understand context matters. That's like huge.
Yeah, context was the word I had in mind, and then you said it because like that's the issue, right? Is because like I can say something on my story or answer someone's question, but it leaves out so much potential context, or someone asks a question about a lot of the things that we're going to talk about today, and it's like, well, it depends. Like what do you mean? Like by like, yeah, we'll get into it. I'll let you kind of intro the topics, but
Yeah, well, I mean, like, for example, somebody would say, well, red food dye is bad for you. And it's like the context matters in a variety of ways because, okay, nobody is just squirting red food dye into their mouth. So
hopefully, yeah.
hopefully, hopefully. So what it's a part of, and then it's like, well, is it because it makes you feel bad, or is it because you heard somebody else say it was bad? Is it, something that is accumulating over time that might be changing things in your body that we just don't really know? And I just can't say enough that a lot of these things, that the dose makes the poison. And also, this is not the reason why you're not reaching your fitness goals. So to pinpoint, or seed oils are making everybody fat, and I'm always like, yeah, okay, like, again, excess calories, maybe from seed oils, maybe people aren't moving around nearly as much as they used to be. Maybe they can order fast food from 5 different places in 5 minutes and eat all of that. Like they didn't have to hunt and gather their food like they they used to. So context matters, right?
Right. Just had to wait in a line to get it. Yeah. I think I definitely, whenever I do like a Q&A thing, like on Instagram, I always get a lot of questions, and I'm like, are you like, I really hope that you're not so tripped up over this one little thing that it's preventing you from like just doing the basics that really are going to move the needle and get you closer to your goals, whether your goals are fat loss, muscle building, maintaining, like improving health, whatever it is. Because like you said, kind of like seed oils, like maybe we start with that one. I feel like that's like the hot, I mean, that's the one I've been getting a lot of questions about.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, or hear about.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I would say about that is and let's just quickly define so everybody knows, when we talk about processed foods, we're talking about foods that are less nutrients dense, hyper palatable, probably those types of foods, the stuff that's in the center of the supermarket type of a thing. So, but we all know too that almost every food is technically processed. So we want to define things that way, right?
Yeah, I usually like to say like minimally processed, because like for example, oatmeal is processed, right? Like we're not eating like raw oats, like hopefully. But it's a good processed food, or like there's different, whatever, like nuts or whatever are in the middle of the grocery aisle, etc. But yeah, I think people get tripped up over like, yeah, these like little ingredients, and instead of like looking at like, well,
Right.
where are you finding these ingredients? Like how, like what kind of foods are they in? So like seed oils, for example, like would be, I mean, a lot of times like out eating out, like cooking like with seed oils, or like baked goods, cookies, crackers, things like that. which like you said, are going to be like that center of the aisle. Like a lot of processing went into making those. They're also very calorie dense
Yes.
and highly palatable. Like they're literally designed for you to eat more of them.
Yeah.
And that's where we kind of talk about like kind of, again, like not good, bad, but better and worse foods for our health. Again, big picture. So
Yeah.
when we talk about like the diet and like, you know, the overall composition of your diet and where you're getting your calories from, that's where we want to consider like quality as like a whole in like your day to day. And then I also like to think like week to week, month to month, even as far as like defining that like balance for somebody.
Yeah, I agree. So, I mean, a lot of these foods are, I just, the reason, people will say like, oh, I'm addicted or something like that. The thing is, if you have like a, little dummy snack cake or something, like there's literally nothing to them there, or like a Krispy Kreme donut. People talk about it's like a couple puffs of air, but it's each one is, I don't know, 300 calories or something. So you can eat like 4 of them in the same amount of time that you could eat an apple, which, has way less calories. So if your body doesn't have to take the time to process, you don't really have to chew things. They're really pumped up with, going back to this like red food dye, all of our foods over the last 20, 30 years have been designed to be desired. So you have food colorings put in them to make them prettier. You have way more sugar and fat than something that you made at home or you grow or whatever. And so there's all these things that come into play that'll make you eat more of that type of food. And what it leads to is an excess amount of calories, right? So it's still, the bottom line is eating too much of something is going to cause weight gain, it's going to cause inflammation, and it's going to, down the line, that chronic inflammation of being over consuming food is likely going to lead to these diseases like heart disease, diabetes, and all those types of things. So this is what I'm talking about, how context matters. Eating like an oatmeal cream pie every day you might get sick of it. They're very, very, I don't know if you ever, we used to eat them when I was a kid in our lunches. And if you've ever had one as an adult, you're like, good Lord, these are so sweet. Like they're so sweet. And then
Yeah.
it changes your palate as well when you're eating these things, because, an apple isn't going to taste as good if you're used to eating sickly sweet foods all the time. So, I mean, that matters as well.
Yeah, if you start like eating like strawberries and you're like, these aren't good, these aren't sweet, or these are plain, like you might need to like reset your taste buds a little bit. But I think too, like just the fear on social media. So like depending on like who you're following, like they paint like a very black and white picture of food in general. And that's the mentality we're trying to avoid and trying to get away from. Or they'll cite more like mechanistic or in vitro, so like meaning like studies that were done like with like cell cultures and stuff, not actual like human trials where you kind of put something head to head. And that's where they're kind of citing the reasoning behind these seed oils, which are mostly like polyunsaturated fats, being like the devil. And it's like, well, yeah, if you put it maybe in a cell culture or look at more like epidemiological studies, it looks bad. But then if you kind of look deeper into like the epidemiological studies, like you were saying, it's because we've increased calories, right? It's not because we've increased like seed oils. We've increased foods that maybe contain seed oils, which increases our calories, which causes inflammation, which causes obesity and heart disease, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. And even with, I think it's around the time of the birth of the TV dinner. And then, once we started having readily available food, people had to work for it a lot less. I mean, even I've seen this on TikTok before, where people are like, did you grow up in an ingredients home or a snack home, where it's like, we didn't really have a whole lot of snacks, and people would be like, oh, we had to go get a tablespoon of peanut butter if we were hungry between, you know what I mean? Like some parents just had a pantry of ingredients because their mom cooked or whatever, rather than just having snacks that you could just forward through, all the time. So all this stuff is more readily available. And I mean, even if you get further into it, the world has just become 24/7. So stress has increased. People are working second and third shifts now, which is not good for sleep and stress and circadian rhythms. The TV, social media, that stuff never turns off. So all these factors come into play with how the body is just supposed to be versus how, we are functioning. So, I mean, obviously that's like further away, but I'm just saying, like, when people say, like you said, seed oils are the problem, it's like there's a lot of variables that come into play with why people are unhealthy. And to blame, like, we could eradicate seed oils and there would be, I mean, what was it, 5 years ago or more was like high fructose corn syrup was the devil. And there's always going to be something to scare people about.
Mhm.
I,
Or almost like scapegoat, right? Like maybe the bigger issue is people don't eat enough protein or enough fruits and veggies or
yeah.
like whole grains, healthy fats, like, and maybe because of lack of access or not knowing how to cook it. Like there's, so much to it. I like the ingredients. Are you an ingredients house or a snack house? Is that what you said?
Yeah, it's something like that. Yeah.
Well, and I feel like if you're looking, like, if you're kind of like listening to this and like thinking of like, okay, like maybe I do eat a lot of Little Debbie's or, like whatever, chips or whatever,
Right.
starting to become more of an ingredients like household. Like that was very much how like I grew up and I didn't really think of anything of it. But if we wanted brownies, we didn't have, I don't even know what they're called, like the little pre-made brownies. Like we didn't have those. Like my mom would make, or we would make like with her, like a box of brownies. And no, it wasn't like completely from scratch, but add the eggs, add the milk, whatever it is. And I feel like that's a good way to kind of, one, have a little bit of a barrier because you have to make it. And then two, it becomes more of a little bit more of an experience, maybe something that you share with friends and family. It's a more of an occasional thing, and kind of can more fit into your diet as a whole. This isn't me advocating to make a box of brownies every 3 days, but this, I think that's, I think a good way to kind of create some barriers and then, have, a little less of a black and white picture of how we can incorporate some of these things.
Right. And, honestly, what it really comes down to is, are you using this fear or that's bad or this bad for it to, like you were saying, lack of accountability, that I now need to make an effort to eat more protein and put more fruits and vegetables on my plate. Like, if you think something is bad for whatever reason, maybe you do have a bad experience with something. Again, I would say make sure it's that thing and not, like with red dyes, like, well, maybe, your kid is hyper because they just ate a bunch of gummy worms. Like, it's not, that's a whole lot of sugar, right? And kids are small, so they're going to get a boost of energy from eating, too many gummy worms or whatever. But there's accountability there, and we are all subject to have to do the best we can with what we had. So whether you believe fruits and vegetables aren't as nutritious as they used to be, you're still required to eat.
Like that argument is like, okay, like, so what's the alternative?
French fries.
French fries from McDonald's, like, yeah.
The whole why bother hopefully isn't like, that's not the case. And Sarah, right, like a lot of this stuff is person dependent. You want to base your groceries and your food bill like on your budget, on your location, that's the problem with a lot of this fear stuff is people right now. I mean, we are living in a recession. People are trying to feed their families, and if they think that everything has to be organic in order for them to be healthy, like that's a horrible message, right?
Yeah, and I think that's absolutely not the case. Like, I mean, that's a big one. The organic stuff, or like people feeling guilty maybe for not being able to get organic. And it's like, no,
Yeah.
do the next best thing. And then even consider that sometimes labels like organic is just kind of a slapped on label. And it's not always the case where I don't know who they are, the label slappers, let's just say, are going and checking on the farms and making sure that like everything is like, minimally using minimal, like not using glyphosates or not using whatever, like to
Besides
the
whatnot.
farm. Yeah. Are the chickens really running around freely and happily, or are they like got like kind of a tiny cage but can sort of move? Like no one's like, yes, there's organizations that check on those things, but it's not exactly like tightly regulated, right? So just doing that next best thing. And I think, I think the stress of it all is far worse for people than some of these foods themselves. I mean, I'm always going to preach mostly whole foods, minimally processed foods, like I said.
Yeah.
Thinking back to like, I almost like to say like paleo, but that's not quite right. But like, 1800s, which is definitely not paleo, but 1800s era, like what foods were available then, and kind of shop based off that, right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And even there's mixing. If you're making food for your family, some of the, you can, I think that's one of the best ways to incorporate some of these things that might be a little bit more cost effective and time effective with your, like, you're still getting your, your grilled chicken breast or whatever. So, one of the things that you had said when we were talking before this, you called it majoring in the minors. And I felt like that was such a great way to describe people being so focused on all these little things like, well, if I don't, and what is the goal again, like to be healthy, to an extent, we're all going to die eventually, right? We want to be healthy pretty close until the time that we have to go. And I don't think that's going to make a difference too much whether you had organic chicken or not organic chicken. The goal is, and the micronutrients of things might not be that different between, your free range eggs and your other eggs. So you really have to think about why it is that you're doing something. As far as your fitness goals go, there's different ways to get your micronutrients, but getting your macros are going to have the biggest impact on physique changes and those types of things.
Yeah. And I think just information overload is definitely a thing too. So just kind of focusing in on those big rocks, like we said, like your macros, calories, like protein calories, fruits and veggies, getting, some good variety there. And that's a lot of like your base, right?
Yeah.
And, kind of with that too, like you kind of touched on it, like some levels of individuality here. How do you feel? Like
Yes.
people ask me like, well, someone asked, I think they were joking, but they asked on like a Q&A, well, if all carbs or all sugars eventually just kind of the body converts it to glucose and uses it for energy or stores it for fat, if that happens for any type of carbohydrate you consume, can't I just eat table sugar instead of white rice? And I'm like, I think you're joking, but try it. Like try it for 3 days. Have your chicken, rice, and chicken, rice, and broccoli, and then have chicken, rice, and table sugar, and let me know like how you feel
Right.
after each of those meals. Like I think so many people are looking externally for answers, and yes, like we learn, like we find education to inform our own decisions, but at the end of the day, they need to be our own decisions based off what our needs are, like you said, what our goals are, and like take the time to like really think about like how do I feel, not jumping to Instagram and like what does so and so say about how I should feel about artificial sweeteners. Like how do you feel when you have this versus that?
One of the things that I think people say, and talking about artificial sweeteners, is how, so I don't know this, and maybe you know a little bit more about this. So I do know that a lot of these studies are super huge doses of, when they're trying to find out if, they cause cancer or whatever. A lot of them are rat studies, I think, as well. But going back to what you said, how do you feel when you have this, and what is this artificial sweetener in also matters, because it could be something else that you're eating that is causing, maybe digestive upset or whatever it is. When people say that something changes your gut microbiome, basically anytime you ingest something, it changes your gut microbiome.
That one makes me laugh because it's like,
Yeah.
well, yeah, anything you eat, you could have apples for a week and then have bananas for a week, and your microbiome would change. Like your microbiome just changes to change.
Yes.
And we also don't know a lot of, like, the gut health and gut microbiome is like still a very, I would say within the last 10 years, it's been talked about more.
Yeah.
Or so, 10 or so years. But in general, like it's still very much like a very new field, like something that we don't really know a lot about. We know a lot more than we did, but again, like I think like it's very presumptuous to like have black and white claims around like certain things and like gut health. Like besides what I said before about like diet variety and whole foods, like I think that's pretty safe to say from the available research we have. But yeah, I mean, how artificial sweeteners like affect gut health, they do affect gut health, like they do cause shifts to the microbiota, but is that good, is that bad?
Right.
Person dependent. Do you already have like a compromised digestive system? Like are you somebody that maybe has bacterial overgrowth or some type of infection? Like then you might be more sensitive to some of these foods that we're talking about. And if that's the case, yes, we maybe want to pull back on the food, but then we want to kind of address like that root cause of like, why are you having this chronic bloating or diarrhea, whatever it is? Like, why is everything making your stomach cramp, and address that. And then we might find that like over time, you can add back in like your pre-workout that has an artificial sweetener in it. Right.
Right. One of the things that I just like to, when you're looking at something, you need to think about all the reasons why something might not be working out well for you. And I just, one of the things I want to reiterate is that when you're eating a lot of these foods that have artificial sweeteners in there, it does change your palate, like you said. And like we said, that you might not think fruits are even very sweet because you're so used to. So I remember back a couple of years ago listening to Fuad on the Real Bodybuilding podcast talking about when he's in contest prep, and he would put like 6 packets of Splenda in his oatmeal, and he was like, he started counting it up, and and he's got like 40 packets of artificial sweetener in a day, and so it's like, because he wants you're so hungry and you need the food and you want the food to taste good. And I feel like that can really, like I said, you have to think about the long-term consequences of.
And the dosage, right? Like, I mean, like I just said, like have some artificial sweetener in your pre-workout. Like that's not me saying like have it in every single meal in massive quantities, right?
Right. So yeah, and I go back to that one a lot too, with the dose makes the poison, when people are talking about like something being bad for them. And the dose makes the poison. Context matters when you talk about your diet. And I love that you said that you can break it down into a meal basis, a day basis, a week basis, a month basis, or even seasonally. I know where I live, just like wintertime, I eat differently than I do in the summertime because the weather is different and what is available to me is different, event wise and all that type of thing. So
yeah, people, that's because you hear in the gut health world like diet variety, and yes, like absolutely diet variety is so important, but I think people again like overthink this one. And it's just kind of thinking about getting variety in your day, and then like shop seasonally, like shop the sales. If you do that, you kind of inherently vary your diet, right? Like because ground beef is on sale this week and it's not next week, right? So maybe you don't buy it and maybe you buy, more chicken or shrimp instead, or like, fruits, veggies, just kind of rotating again, same thing.
So one of the things that we don't know really though is long term, like if these things build up, if they do, cause like even with artificial sweeteners, like, okay, so if it's changing the gut microbiome over time, is it detrimental? Like, I guess, we don't really know. And is it something that you want to avoid? Again, that's kind of your choice, but I don't want people to fall into the into these, like, this is absolutely bad, you should avoid it. There's other one, red meat causes cancer. Is an is another one. I think even doctors were preaching that for a very long time. People compare it to cigarettes. I don't know why. There must have been like some sort of study that was
And it's like, well, maybe charred meat or like
right.
bacon or McDonald's, right? Or a
Right.
T-bone versus a sirloin. There's differences in the fat content. There's so much kind of nuance to it.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think having there's a lot of great qualities to eating beef as well, especially like your good doses of B vitamins that you're not going to find in a lot of other even meat.
Iron, yeah, there's so many good nutrients in meat, animal proteins. Like I
Yeah.
think including it is a good option for most people.
Well, and it's just like salmon. People will, like maybe you don't want to eat salmon every day, but I think it's recommended that you eat it 2 or 3 times a week for like the omegas. And so again, variety, not really focused on having your diet being exactly the same all the time, so you don't get like a buildup or whatever of one particular thing, switching things around.
Yeah,
That
and do what you can, right? Like budget wise too. Like I feel like that's a big thing. Like back to the organic. Like I personally don't go out of my way to buy organic fruits and veggies. Like occasionally it'll be a little cheaper than the regular one. Like very occasionally, but occasionally it will be a little cheaper and I'll get it just because it's a little cheaper or on sale or whatever. I try to buy like humanely raised, like free range like eggs, but again, like if I'm at the grocery store and it's like $10 for 12 organic eggs and it's like maybe 5 for like the free range non-organic ones, like I'm gonna save $5, right?
right.
Or like shopping at like Aldi. Like I went there yesterday, like so much cheaper for a lot of organic things, a lot of just food in general.
Yeah.
Um,
That's so funny. I was there yesterday too, and I was shocked because I even actually bought which I don't know why, I just look good, but it was like a cheeseburger flat crust pizza, but everything else was like Whole Foods ingredients, and it was like I spent like $30. I'm like,
I got like 5 pounds of chicken, like eggs, yogurt, all this produce, and I was out of there in like $65. I'm like, this is amazing. That would be easily over 100 at Publix.
yeah, oh, for sure, for sure. And the cool thing about Aldi is that they do local, and their the eggs are whatever they are, free range or something. There's something like that. So, yeah, I agree. It's a good place. Obviously, or I'm not going to say obviously, but everyone I know who shops there has to also go somewhere else for a couple other things.
I was gonna say that's like the one thing too, is like there's a couple things like they don't have, or my husband's such a baby, and I shouldn't say he's a baby, but he only likes like this certain brand of like, oh, it's the Fairlife chocolate milk.
Mm.
Like he's like, don't get me white milk. Like it's like heaven forbid, like bring you home white milk or like whatever, just like certain things like that.
So funny. I wanted to touch on something that I know, like you and I have different goals, and I have a more probably relaxed diet than you do. And one of the things is that like I will eat fat-free or low-fat salad dressings. I will mix those, or I'll mix them with a full-fat dressing to lower the calories. And people are always like, oh, those are full of so many like chemicals and they're so bad for you. Like people throw around chemicals and toxic like words as buzzwords or whatever. But to me, I'm like, okay, but if I use like regular dressing or even like oil, like it might not be enough for me to like for my salad. I won't like it. I won't want it. And if I use what I was going to use the amount wise, then I'm going to have more calories. So you have to, again, you kind of have to pick your poison. Like I'll do I can't read, like, people are like, well, you can't even pronounce the ingredients. I hate that one too.
Like, well, there's healthy foods I can't pronounce, like delicata squash. Like I can never say that one. Like delicata, yeah.
Right, right. So to me, I think that you have to do what you're willing, like what you're okay with. And, again, I think the inflammation of being in a calorie surplus and eating too much fat in my diet is going to be worse than me eating fat-free dressing.
I'm with you. Like I like to just tell people, like, pick your battles. Like if there's, whatever, like you have like one food or a couple of foods that maybe like have like maybe people that what people would say are questionable ingredients,
Right.
but you have a little bit of it, or it's like your one thing, like,
Yeah.
okay, big whoop, like for me, my thing's like coffee, like, maybe it's like a hair over what I should have, but it's like, if that's my one thing, like give me a friggin' break.
Right.
um or yeah, I'm trying to think, like, yeah, like your example with the salads and salad dressing, like if that's a good way for you to eat your veggies, like hell yeah. Like I'm definitely for like getting fat in your salad dressing. Like you do want to have some fat in there, but if you like the taste of the fat free and want to mix it in with the full fat, like, yeah.
Yeah, I know. Cause well, a lot of times I eat a salad for dinner almost every night and I'll switch out the proteins. And sometimes I do like 3 whole eggs, which obviously is going to give me 15 grams of fat right there. So then I try to cut, you know what I mean? It's like, I always try to figure out what's going to be the best way to get the same macros in that meal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what else? I don't know if we kind of touched on everything, but all the stuff that I had listed, but I think I want to say that the hardest thing is these, you get these accounts on social media, and there's some of the accounts that I follow do a really good job of taking these videos and breaking them down of, the guys shirtless in the grocery store telling you that sugar is bad for you. I mean, that's a big one, Sarah. Why do you think people think that sugar is bad for you?
Well, it's like, okay, well, again, like how much? Like, are you having a big bowl of Raisin Bran like every single day for breakfast? You might find that you're a little better off doing eggs and oatmeal, right? Or a smoothie or something that has some fiber in it, has some protein in it.
Right.
Or like, I think this is the other thing. So like, I'll like have something with like sugar in it and I'll like post it and it's like, well, I'm really freaking active and I work out really hard. If you're super sedentary, that sugar is going to hurt you more than it's going to,
Right.
someone that is like really needs that sugar for like fast energy, post workout, or, to kind of replete some glycogen. So yeah, like the Cocoa Puffs, like in my a little bit of Cocoa Puffs, whatever, might be different for me than it will be for you post workout or post Netflix, whatever. you know that sounded bad, but I mean, it's kind of true, right? Like how active are you kind of plays a role here, and what are your energy needs,
Yeah.
plays a role.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny how many clients that I've had that I've given them, even like a full meal post workout, and they're just like, oh, I've never eaten this much before. It's like, well, you've never worked this hard for your food before either.
Yeah, and it's not that we're working for our food, right? It's that,
Right. It's portion
yeah,
words.
yeah, I know you meant, but I just like, I don't want like anyone to twist what I said and to say like, oh, I earned those,
Yeah.
Honey Nut Cheerios. Like, it's like, no, like it's just easier for me to digest than a potato right now. Like post workout when I'm all jacked up, it's some good, kind of easy to digestible carbohydrate, right?
Yeah, the need base is very, very important. And I think this determines people's experiences as well. Like I can tell you, like if I don't know, I think about a time when I was completely inactive. Let's say I had an injury or something. If I had a bag of gummy worms while I was watching TV and I hadn't worked out in 5 days, I'm probably going to feel like crap. But if I decide that I'm going to have a serving of gummy bears post workout with my shake, it probably wouldn't phase me at all because I'm utilizing
Yeah, it's not going to cause like the blood sugar spike that it would have, which we touched on in another episode, I think. Yeah.
Yes, we did. We did. So anyways, what I was going to say was just, if you have, I really, really, really want to encourage people, if you're following people that are, screaming at you or even politely telling you that specific foods should be avoided and are bad for you, just really go to that common sense portion of your brain and just say, is this helpful? Because I honestly, my bigger pet peeve is, it's not helpful for you to point out what I need to avoid. Tell me what I'm supposed to do in order to be healthy and feed my family and make good choices in the grocery store, and that type of thing. And I think they can't make those types of videos because it's very person dependent,
Yeah, we should do, maybe that could be a future episode. Let us know if you guys would find that helpful. Like how we cook, like, because I mean, it's different too. Like if you're cooking for yourself or you're cooking for a family,
Yeah.
huge, like major difference.
Yeah, one of the people that I would encourage if you're looking to cook for your family to follow is Jenna. Is it Jenna? Yeah, because it's Jean, but it's pronounced Jenna. Jenna Aragon, Alan Aragon's wife. She cooks for her family all the time using, like, it's all about, she's like, I find the things that are the most colorful. She buys protein that's on sale, tries to incorporate that into her meals. Because I'm not cooking for a family and you're probably only cooking for one or two as well. But yeah, that's
Yeah, I
definitely
mean, like, yeah, I think like there's, I mean, a lot of easy, great options out there. Like, we're getting into fall, so like chilies, like with like lean beef or turkey, like
yeah.
throw in like, beans, veggies, etc. Soups, like there's a lot of options.
Yeah, chili in the crock pot, turkey chili. I
I had
love
a whole conversation with someone at Aldi about it because saw I was buying turkey. He was like, I made a chili with that, and I was like, that's what I was gonna make with it. So,
that's awesome.
fun fact.
One of the things that because I know, like, when you buy really lean ground beef, it's like so dry. And I'll make like 4-ounce patties and then I will pan fry them and I will keep them like pink in the middle so that they're like, even if you reheat them, like it's still not cooked. So it's like a hockey puck and
Yeah, yeah. Or same guy at Aldi, we had a conversation. He was telling me that he made meatballs with like the turkey, the 99-1 turkey, but he added shredded zucchini to it.
oh
So you
yeah.
can eat that with any kind of like beef or turkey kind of patty, and you probably like you won't taste it.
Yeah. And it
There you
will,
go. So you get some veggies too.
yeah, and add that moisture. Yeah, maybe like an Aldi store haul, like what we buy at Aldi. I don't
Yeah.
know. There's like you said, all of the staples are so great. I mean, they even have like whole tubs of Greek, like plain Greek yogurt.
Like I think I was like 3.85. That would be like at least $5 at most grocery stores.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I mean, I hadn't been to Aldi in forever because it is kind of out of my way, but I'm gonna start going back because yeah, things are, I mean, it's expensive. So
Yeah, and then you might decide too that like, and then you might put off like whatever it is, the little specialty. Because I had the same thing, and they don't have kale. Like I need to get kale for my bunnies. And
aw, yeah.
so, you know, and so we have a D&W like right up the street, and
Yeah, yeah. It's like those little things, yeah. Or like you're saying, like you might find like, okay, fine, I can live without the chocolate milk, or like what I my example before. Like he can maybe suck it up and make his smoothies with water. Like
yeah. Yeah. And the coffee creamer that I like, they don't have there. And I've tried some of the Aldi brands and I'm like not a fan. I'm not a fan. So I mean it's like everything. You just kind of have to try it out, suck it up.
suck it up.
Yeah. So anyways, yeah. So be careful who you're following on social media. And I think the next episode, Sarah and I are going to talk a little bit more about how to discern evidence-based stuff. This will be something you're probably going to want to watch on the YouTube video, because we'll pull up some studies and just talk about, is it funded by big pharma or meat?
Yes, looking for what is a high quality study.
Yes, that would be amazing, so that you all can be a little bit more discerning about what you really need to focus on if you want to. The other thing is that I know I follow I follow Sarah, and Sarah knows knows a lot of good researchers, but we have a good group of people that we follow that provide great interpretation of studies, and so that would be good to talk about. Maybe even some of our favorite podcasts to listen to that cover evidence-based stuff.
Yeah, maybe we can have like a list together for next time of like podcasts and people to follow on Instagram. Because I definitely have a lot, of friends or people that are like PhDs or, doctors or just, evidence-based practitioners that have some good stuff. Because I've kind of got a way of like deciphering studies, like as far as content goes, but I still definitely read studies to stay, kind of on top of stuff and keep myself sharp.
Yeah, very cool. So, all right. Well, Sarah, thanks for stopping by again and doing this. I do love it.
Thank you for having me. Hopefully you guys got some good takeaways. Let us know if you make turkey chili or go to Aldi.
Yeah, 'tis the season. So, all right. Well, guys, thanks for listening and watching to another episode of the Women's Fittest. You can find Sarah on Instagram. Man, I get this wrong every time. Sarah, it's Sarah Ford Bishop, right?
Yeah, on Instagram.
Yeah, Sarah Ford Bishop. I'm Buffcake22. I don't ever post anything anymore. And you can follow the podcast at The Women's Fittest. And you can also find us on YouTube at Buffcake22. Remember that healthy looks different on everybody. Have a great day, guys.